Everybody wants to be thought of well and have a good opinion from other people, good reputation in that regard. But some people take it to the point where their whole sense of identity is wrapped up into what other people think about them. And some of even, when people's views of them takes a dip, some people even taken their life before because they just weren't viewed well by other people. And there's something in most of us probably that goes, that doesn't seem right either. That maybe we shouldn't put that much stock in reputation. It shouldn't certainly be the number one and most important thing in our life either. And so we're going to just look a little bit today and try to say and find a balance and say what is the place of reputation in our life, and why is it important, and why we talk about it in terms of wisdom. Well, in a lot of different cultures, in fact, most different cultures have always linked wisdom with reputation to some degree. In our own culture, I think of somebody wise, you think of like Ben Franklin, right? And he said, glass, china, and reputation are easily cracked and never well mended, right? So what's he saying there? That you could have something valuable, glass, china, or reputation, and you could even spend a whole bunch of time building it and have a great reputation, but one indiscretion could actually crack it. It could ruin it to a point where it was really hard to get back if you could ever restore it to what it once was. Reputations kind of work that way. Even well before him, in fact, even 300 years before Jesus lived, there was Socrates, right? The famous Greek philosopher. And even in that culture, they're like, yeah, wisdom and reputation are important. The way to gain a good reputation is to endeavor to be what you desire to appear. Socrates, he's familiar with all the Greek actors called Hippocrates, right? That was the name for Greek actor, and you can guess what word we got from that word, right? Hypocrite. And he knows that Socrates knew that there were all kinds of people that wanted to appear a certain way, but not everybody really had the character to back what they wanted to appear as. And so he says the best way to gain that reputation is to endeavor to be that person. Endeavor to be that kind of person that you want to appear to be. And so all kinds of different cultures have recognized this. But even hundreds of years before Socrates was one of the wisest men that ever lived, King Solomon. And he recognized the importance of a reputation as well. And back in Bible times, they wouldn't always use the word reputation. They talk about it like a name, right? You had a good family name. And there was a whole bunch of things that were tied to your name as a family or as a person. And Solomon said it this way. Let's read this together. A good name is more desirable than great riches. To be esteemed is better than silver or gold. Now, Solomon knew something about what it meant to have gold or silver. Right? He was one of the wealthiest men to ever live. Israel was prospered greatly under his reign as a king. But he also knew something about reputations. And this, one of the wisest men that ever lived, said that your reputation, your name, was far more valuable than that gold or silver. Far more valuable than gold or silver. And sometimes to us we go, well, why is that? I mean, what is reputation made of anyway? I mean, sometimes we're trying to even figure that out. How do we even get a reputation? Where does it come from? And part of the answer to that question actually comes in its definition from the Webster Online version here. So your reputation, it says, is an overall quality or character as seen or judged by people in general, or recognition by other people of some characteristic or ability. Did you notice how the words character or characteristic came up in both of those definitions? That's significant because there is a link, actually, between your character and your reputation, isn't there? We'd say character are those inner qualities that you have, and it's hard to see. You can see the fruit of your character, but you can't see the character itself. But as other people see your character in action, as you live out, as they see the fruits of that character, that's where you develop that reputation from. And we'd say that there's an importance between character and between reputation, right? On the one hand, most of us would kind of fall somewhere on a spectrum, like you got Mother Teresa over here, right? Or Dr. Evil over here. And we'd go, yeah, I kind of fall somewhere, maybe in between those kind of things. But one of the things that you'll notice is that it's a lot easier to move this direction than it is this direction. Have you noticed that, right? In terms of a reputation. You see, reputation matters, and it affects all kinds of things. Solomon recognized this, and this is another book on wisdom that he wrote called Ecclesiastes. He said that it's really easy for that reputation to get damaged. And one of the ways he put it was this: as dead flies give perfume a bad smell, so a little folly outweighs wisdom and honor. And so he's saying kind of this, that you can have you got a great jar of perfume, right? It could smell really wonderful, could all kinds of good things, but a couple little pesky flies land in there and die, it really stinks up the whole thing. It kind of wrecks the whole thing. And when you apply that principle to our reputation, right, you could have a wonderful reputation, but it doesn't take much to damage it and to shatter it. And man, does that have some harmful effects on who we are and what we're called to do. And so sometimes we might even ask, a person could at least ask, does reputation still matter in this day and age? I mean, when you lived in the small town and everybody knew your business, and you go, well, it's obviously kind of important there. But in larger cities and today, does reputation still matter quite the same way that it used to for people? Well, I've invited one of our elders, Pat Swagger, to come up and share a couple thoughts with you about how our reputation relates to how it's important for us today.
Good morning, everyone. Wow, what a lead-in, Pastor. Great message so far. We talked about our reputation, and everyone has a reputation, like it or not. Your last name is kind of a branding of sorts. So what does your family name mean to you? What does it mean to others? Is it good, bad, or indifferent? There can be a family like the Kennedys. I mean, when you think of Kennedys, you think of all kinds of things. You think of John F. Kennedy, you think of Robert Kennedy, you think of Ted Kennedy, and you think of all the reputations that go around it. And I will tell you, your last name is really a branding of who you really are. Your last name blended with your first name creates your own individual identity. With that identity, you become your own person. Now, granted, back in the 80s, my last name being Swiger, and Jimmy Swiger getting all these problems, that didn't help me any of my own reputation. I'm surprised my wife even married me over that one. But she knows there is no relation. There are millions of people in this world today who carefully manicure their reputations. Why is that? Because at one time they've been tarnished. They don't want to go back to that. I've done things wrong in my life when I was a kid, and how many folks in here remember their parents saying, there you go, dragging the family name through the mud again, or something like that. Sometime an entire family has been tainted or destroyed by credibility of one person. Irregardless, that reputation is still with you, but you still have your own identity. So for me, I look at it like you, your own self, is your own identity. Your last name is your family, who you're in. We as Christians have our own identity as Christians. Sub-part of that would be Lutherans. Sub-part of that would be OSLC. Sub-part of that would be who you are at OSLC. So everything matters in life. Reputation is very important, and a good idea to learn how you can protect that good name, because it will take you places or will keep you from going places. Consider this. If I'm a hothead, and you remember me having a meltdown, let's say a really nuclear meltdown, you guys remember that. That reputation will stick with me, just like it will stick with anyone else. So then I think, okay, taking that in mind, who do I really want to be? You know, it reminds me of a couple songs in the pop music, rock and roll culture. One by The Who, which is a theme song for CSI, and that is Who Are You? Another one, if you don't like your family reputation or what you stand for, what people think about you. Another pop song really rings true to me, produced by Saida Garrett, and Michael Jackson, Man in the Mirror. Both great songs about reputation, character, and who you really are. You know, even like Pastor was saying about a job, I'm an employer, and there's many people that have applied for a job recently at my organization. Over 300 applicants for a simple, literally simple, customer service administrative job. As an employer, I'm going through all these resumes, over 300. And actually, I quit looking at them because they kept coming, and I thought, I can't deal with this. But first of all, I started looking at the names of the people that were applying. And I was looking for, do I recognize this name? Do I recognize this person? What's their character, reputation that I know of, heard of, or have had experience with? I didn't see that. Then I started looking at skill set. But remember, my first choice was reputation. Second was I was looking at the character, or looking at the skill set. Now, granted, I can pick on Joe Smith, for example. I don't know anything Joe sent me a resume with just his skill set. It doesn't mean much other than he proclaims to have these skills. So then I sent out a pre-interview questionnaire to try and pull out different character points of these people, because I know a person's character is what leads to their reputation. You can always take a person with good character and train them in skill set. I didn't want to hire someone with a great skill set and be a flop in my organization. So, you know, with that in mind, I also take the philosophy that our church has. Love God, love people, live like Jesus. Because when you die to your own personal self and you put him first, just like Pastor Brian is trying to get us to do, we live for him, we're designed by him, we do his work, and everything falls into place. Everything. I've witnessed this myself, and I've witnessed others doing the same thing. Great sermon series we're going into, a lot to learn by a lot of people. But you got to be more than just superficial and thinking about yourself. It's about your core, which is your reputation. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Pat. Appreciate that. You know, I've talked to some other people in positions where they've employing people too, and if it comes down to choosing between character or skills, always they choose character, because they know you can teach somebody skills, but character, man, that's something that's hard to change, something hard to adjust in the lives of people. When we look at the kinds of things that character and reputation affect, it affects a whole host of things. We said, like jobs, even your ability to get a place to live, your ability to volunteer. There's a whole bunch of things that it really affects. But it also affects some very significant spiritual things in our lives as well. You know, that the Bible talks about reputation in a number of different ways. Sometimes it doesn't always use that word for it. Even Paul, when he's writing his letter to the churches in Rome, he writes this about him. He said, "First, I thank my God through Jesus Christ for all of you, because your faith is being reported all over the world." That church had gained a reputation, hadn't it? They'd gained a reputation as a faithful people of God, and not only was that a great thing for them, but it was strengthening the faith of the people around them as other churches heard about this. We also recognize, too, that you and I have been given a very special calling by God. He actually calls us ambassadors, right? That we live, you and I are to be ambassadors of God. And when you think about what an ambassador does, like when our president calls someone to be an ambassador, do you think their reputation matters? Probably a lot, right? Because that reputation that they have, ultimately people are going to go, well, I guess that country is kind of like this person. If they're sending this person to be a representative of them as an ambassador, you know, that must be sort of who they are as a people. And so as a country, we sure hope we have people with good reputations that are going out and being ambassadors for our country. And when you take that and you go like, well, what does that mean when God calls you and I his ambassadors? Well, what it means is that our reputation is very significant oftentimes in how other people will perceive Christianity and what it means. They'll look at you and I and go, oh, either in a very positive way and go, that's a wonderful view of what a Christian is. That's something very attractive and good about their life. Or what might happen too is if our life doesn't match up too well, if there's some character flaws, right, some serious things going on there, people also may go, maybe that Christianity is not for me. Maybe there's really nothing to it after all, because it hasn't seemed to have made much of a difference here. And so character and relation and your reputation are very significant things beyond just ourselves. And it ultimately influences how people think about Christianity. In Acts chapter 4, there's this guy, Joseph. He's a Levite. And some really neat things are happening in the first few chapters of Acts, and including in the beginning of chapter 4, there's this really big outpouring of generosity by all these new believers, and incredible things happening. And one of these people that was very generous and had apparently done some very encouraging things on multiple occasions was this one man named Joseph. He's a Levite. And remember, those are the people that would take care of the temple, and even some of the Levites would become the priests back in this day. So an important kind of a thing that he did, and he comes and he lays this gift at the apostles' feet. And the apostles say, you know what? Joseph, we're going to change your name. We're going to give you a new name to reflect who you are, to reflect your reputation that you have. And they changed his name to Barnabas, which means son of encouragement. And this is the same Barnabas that becomes Paul's traveling companion, and actually is one that kind of initially trains up Paul to even be the man that he eventually became. Barnabas, right, a man of encouragement, had that reputation. But the Bible also has a number of negative examples too, like there's that woman that interrupted the dinner that Jesus was invited to. He was invited to Simon the Pharisee's house. Simon was kind of rude to him, kind of snubbed him a bit. And this woman, she comes and she cries at Jesus' feet. She wets his feet with her tears and dries it with her hair. And everybody's thinking like, oh, this is a really sinful woman, right? She had that reputation. We don't know anything more of really what that means than that, but she was considered a sinful woman. She had that kind of a reputation. And we can imagine how that can really hurt people in their lives and the kind of struggles that creates for them. Maybe you even remember from your English literature class the book Scarlet Letter, right? Anybody read that one? Yes, right. Hester Prynne, right? The lady, she had to come up, she had this letter, right? This scarlet A, it stood for adultery. And that became her reputation in that entire community. Everybody in that community had an idea of who she was, and that reputation followed her everywhere and probably affected every aspect of her life. Now, if you and I were to think about letters, right, that might be tagged on us, there might be a couple of different kinds of things. And we have a couple folks here that are wearing letters. And what do they mean?
I am insignificant. I don't even know why I came up here. It's not like I have anything intelligent to say. If God can really look into our hearts, if God can really look into our souls, then He knows what I'm all about. He knows that I'm worthless, I'm useless, I'm just a complete waste of His space. I can't do anything right, so there's nothing that I could ever do for God, and God could never love a loser like me. Sometimes I just wish this was all over and I was done. I'm sorry.
I am greed. I know as an American, I live in the wealthiest and the greatest country in the world. I have all that I could ever ask for. I have a house, 2 cars, a great job, a college education, a walk-in closet full of clothes. But it's not enough. My neighbor Sarah just bought this new Lexus SUV, and I have to have that car. I can't have her thinking that she's better than me. It doesn't really matter if I have money in the bank for it. That's what credit cards are for, right? And anyways, my 2010 Escalade is so old. I know as a Christian, I'm supposed to give back my 10%, but how am I supposed to afford my iPhone 5 upgrade next month? And God doesn't really need my 10%, right? I just want to be happy and live the American dream. Is that too much to ask?
You know, if we were to be honest, there's probably a number of letters that we could put on ourselves. And in fact, what I'm hoping you'll do now is take out your sticky note. You're wondering, what in the world is that for? Well, take that out and go ahead and put it on yourself right now. And what I would like you to do is to think for just a moment, what kinds of letters should be on you? What kind of letters should indicate who you are? You don't have to write them down. I mean, you could write them down and share with your neighbor what they mean if you want. But actually, what I'd recommend you do is just think about it. Right? Just think about what letters should go there and identify you with your sin. When it comes down to it, there are quite a few letters that you probably have. In fact, for myself, I've got multiple words for different letters, actually. The question is this who you are? Is this how you are known? Is this your name? Is this your reputation? Well, thanks be to God, there was another name. It goes all the way back to the Christmas story. When Jesus was given that very name by his parents, he was told to name him that because he will save their people from their sins. And how they would have said Jesus' name in that Hebrew culture is Yeshua. And it's a contraction of the word Yahweh and the word for saves. Yahweh saves. And it's at his name, and it's through his name, that all these sins, all the things that many people think maybe should define you, or how some people see themselves, God said, I'm taking that away. In fact, I'm going to go to the cross, and I'm going to shed my very blood so that all those things, all those letters, they would be washed away. And what that means now is that you are not known as insignificant, but you are a son of God. And what that means is that you are not known for greed, but you are known as a daughter of the Most High. And friends, that's true of each one of us as well. That those things do not define us, but your identity as a forgiven child of God. It's the very blood of Jesus Christ that was shed for you to wash away that sin. It's the only thing that can remove those scarlet letters from you. It's the blood of Jesus.